suspect you're out of sync.
Thinks that you're out of your mind.
Everything you know is wrong.
Is everything you know wrong about the history of America and many of its seminal events? Jesse Ventura, the former governor of Minnesota, New York Times best-selling author, is on the line with us. His website, truetv.com, and he has a new book out called American Conspiracies. Governor Ventura, welcome to our program.
Hi, Thom. How are you today?
I am great, but I'll get better. I hope you are too.
Oh, I'm doing okay. Getting a little tired of over a week of this now, going from coast to coast and back again.
Yeah, well, it's as a fellow author, I can tell you, book tours will grind you down, but they can be sometimes very, very interesting. I'm curious. I want to talk to you about the 1980 October surprise and the 2000 election theft, which you touch on in your book. But something I unless I missed it, I didn't see in your book and I couldn't. There wasn't an index. Didn't you have a TV show on MSNBC at one point?
Yeah.
So what happened there?
Well, what happened there was really simple. I was the hottest commodity when I came out of office because I was the voice of the independent. I'm
now,
not
this
a
was
Democrat or a Republican.
This was in 2000 or 2002?
No, this was in 2003.
2003. Okay,
Yeah,
so that was when you left the governorship of Minnesota.
Yeah, I left office January of 2003. I was a hot commodity, so a bidding war started between Fox, CNN, and MSNBC.
Right.
We settled on MSNBC. I was supposed to be on 5 nights a week with my own show, like they all are. MSNBC was fully involved in it. They even sent a guy out. His name was Van, to create the entire show along with us. We moved along, and then all of a sudden, the day we were ready to go, Sorensen, who was the boss there, came out, didn't even watch the show, and then met with us and said, I can't put this on TV.
Now,
and we were stunned. Now, they did put us on Saturdays at like 5 o'clock for about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, we did about 5
What was their
shows
objection to what you were doing?
Well, they knew exactly what I was doing. They created the whole show, but here's what I've learned since. Now, and subsequently, let me add, they paid me the entire 3 years.
Wow.
And
good work if you can get it.
Well, this was a contract like a professional sports athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And
they paid you very well.
I've subsequently learned that a phone call happened where they called up and they said, is it true that the governor doesn't support the war in Iraq? And the person had been with me 4 years at the Capitol and was now working on the show. He said, yeah, that's true. He doesn't support it. And the voice paused and said, does New Jersey know about this?
That would be the headquarters of
MSNBC. And my person said, I don't know. And then another pause, and they said, do you think he would change his position? And this person said, well, I've worked with the governor for 4 years. When he gets pretty staunch and out of a position, he doesn't change too often. Well, subsequently, and I believe I was held off the air because of my opposition of the Iraq War. Well, and I back it up by saying this. At this time, MSNBC was trying to be Fox Light. They weren't trying to be the liberal they are
Right,
now.
That was just about the time, or just after they bounced Phil Donahue, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Phil Donahue was their highest-rated show, and he likewise opposed the war in Iraq. Phil was taken off the air, and I was not allowed on the air. And it was at that point I realized that the government controls our media a whole lot more than what we realize.
Or, I mean, keep in mind...
corporate America.
Yeah, I was going to say, General Electric is a major defense contractor.
Sure.
So, your book, American Conspiracies, would you drop that into the category of a conspiracy theory? That the media ginned up the war?
Would I drop what in as
you're being kept off MSNBC as one small example of a much larger metaphor of the media drumming up a war because it was good for ratings for the media and because it was good for the corporations that many of the media that are associated with
absolutely.
who are defense contractors.
Absolutely, I fully agree with that, Thom.
Yeah, okay.
Fully agree with that.
In 1980. Interestingly, if I were to ask you on what day, what is the numerical day in November? We all know it's the first Tuesday in November. What's the date going to be of the next presidential election? Odds are you couldn't pull that off the top of your head.
No.
And nor could any American. Yet somehow these students, in quote, in Iran knew a year in advance the exact date that the presidential election was going to be held in 1980. In 1979, they knew that, and they took hostages that year in advance, so that 1 year from then, the big headline, of course, was, 1 year anniversary of the hostages, just as people are going to the polls to vote for Carter versus Reagan. You talk about the October surprise in 1980 here.
Well, the October surprise was that what we learned through documentation and study, Dick Russell and myself, and I want to give kudos to Dick, because Dick is the researcher. The guy's phenomenal at it,
Yeah.
and I don't have the patience for all that all the time to sift through and find this stuff. But it would just seem too ironic, or too, nothing happens. Everything is planned, in my opinion. And I quote that from Colonel Fletcher Proud. He said that.
Yeah.
And
no coincidences.
How ironic that the moment that Reagan, an hour after he's sworn in, the hostages are released.
Yeah.
I mean, that, come on.
Yeah, and Bill Casey, who was the head of his campaign, and then he put in charge of the CIA, the day that he was supposed to testify before Congress about his role in cutting a deal with the Iranians to hold the hostages so that Carter would lose the election. That day, he had a seizure in his office, was hauled off to the hospital, and they removed the part of his brain that was responsible for speech. They cut out his tongue, effectively. You reference Barbara Honegger's book, October Surprise, in your book, American Conspiracies, and she has that story in her book.
And to me, that, come on, and the sad part is, they use these hostages as complete political pawns.
Yeah, the Republicans did. And so in 1980, we had the theft of an election by a Republican using dirty tricks. In 2000, you talk about the election theft.
Well, the election theft in 2000, 2004, and almost 2008 is based upon, what is that company, Diebold or whatever they are? I can't remember.
Diebold or Diebold, I don't.
Diebold, however you say it.
Yeah.
Well, that's these electronic voting machines. They got to lose them. We got to get rid of them, because I like to put it in this context. Would you go to an ATM that didn't offer you a receipt?
Yeah.
Nobody would. Now, whether you take the receipt or not is your option, but you're still offered one. These electronic voting machines are just like any other computer. They can be hacked into in many, many ways. And we uncovered evidence, through research that in Ohio, especially in 2004, all of a sudden the votes were channeled through this company in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, all the polls had John Kerry winning. And yet at the 11th hour, George Bush made this miraculous comeback and won the election. And so...
And that company, and we have 30 seconds, and that company in Chattanooga, Tennessee that was tracking the Ohio vote for the Ohio Secretary of State was associated with the Bush administration?
Oh, they're not associated with them. They give huge donations to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
We learned that.
Didn't they also host the server for gwbush43.com?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did, which is where the 5 million emails vanished that Karl Rove was...
there you go.
So, it's...
So, as the old cliche goes, there's just something rotten in Denmark, and I certainly hope that, I would urge every state to get rid of these things and go back to handheld ballots where you circle a thing. Because if you can't fill one of them out, you've been doing things like that since first grade. Come on.
Yeah, we need to go back to paper in the United States. Yep. Absolutely. Jesse Ventura, his book, American Conspiracies with Dick Russell. Check it out in your bookstore near you, truetv.com, the website. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Governor.
Bye-bye.
Bye.